Hello and welcome to the second part of our journey through machine learning and AI history. I'm Edouard Cornet and I will be your lecturer today. In this lesson, we will go through the period where the expectation about AI becomes overstated, and then how commercial and scientific activities in artificial intelligence decline dramatically. In this second lesson, we will continue with the AI history timeline, placing us in the early 70s. The subject of this lesson will be mainly the AI winter period. This section will be addressed in three parts. In the first part, we will see an introduction to the AI winter, the causes and implications. Then, in the second part, we will talk about how machine learning and AI took a separate path. And finally, we will go on to talk about a few works still developed during this period. The history of artificial intelligence has known several hype cycles through the ages. Owing to high expectations, promising technologies, but also to disappointment, criticism, loss of interest in research and reduced funding. Hypes are often associated with rise and fall of new technologies. One of these periods sits in the late 60s. AI knows its first boom. AI is seen as a promising field, with AI prototypes developed, artificial intelligence commercial services, inflated expectation, and an excessive media coverage. After all this expectation, there was a period of fall in 1973 known as the AI winter. The term first appeared until 1984 as a topic at the annual meeting of the American Association of Artificial Intelligence. AI winter is like a domino reaction, beginning with the AI community deception, followed in turn by the press pessimism, which caused in a cutback in funding, and with this, the end of serious researches. We can consider three factors involving the trigger of AI winter and which at the same time set the tone to the process. During the 1960s, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, provided millions of dollars for funding AI research without expecting anything in return. Searchers were able to spend it in any way they liked. The DARPA's director premise was funding people, not projects. Because of the Manfield Amendment in 1969, DARPA was required to justify mission-oriented direct research rather than basic, undirected research for funding. Researchers had to prove that AI works, will be deliverable and produce some useful military technology. Expected AI results were pushed to a very high level. In the meantime, the National Research Council led an evaluation project about the state of AI, concerned about the lack of progress in the field, and formed the Automatic Language Processing Advisory Committee (ALPAC) to carry out this study. The setback in the late 60s and a new study ordered in early 70s in the United Kingdom can be considered as the reason of the AI winter beginning. AI winter lasted for near 2 decades. The beginning of the AI winter could be ascribed to the government's willingness to withdraw on AI. This decision can be attributed mostly to the result of two reports at this time: the ALPAC report from the US government and the Lighthill report from the Science Research Council of British government. One of the main motivations for the ALPAC report was the efficiency and advances of machine translation. At the time, the progress on MT became slow, and the US agencies which supported this research field wanted to know the causes of this slowdown. The ALPAC report looked for a return of investment of the MT research instead of a scientific value. It focused on the utility as military technology and US government's needs. At this time, the government showed a main interest on automatic instant translation of Russian documents to English. At that time, there was not a lack of translators under contract, just a few portion of them were being called. For this reason, in order to justify MT research, it was necessary to prove that important improvements in quality, speed and cost were satisfactory. As expected, at the time MT was not able to prove none of these aspects. As an example, the phrase "the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak" was translated back from Russian, becoming "the vodka is good but the meat is rotten." The Professor James Lighthill was charged by the UK Science Research Council to evaluate the state and advances of AI research in the United Kingdom. This report was published in 1973, presenting a very pessimistic forecast in the development of core aspects in AI research. It stated that in no part of the field have the discoveries made so far produced the major impact that was then promised. As a result, the Lighthill report concluded that AI's most successful algorithm would be limited to overcome real-world problems and they would be only suitable for solving toy versions. And the British government decided to cut the funding for all AI research with exception of a few universities. During AI winter and because of the cutting funds, the AI research programs found it necessary to take a new phase in order to continue receiving funding. AI took many different names at this time as machine learning, informatics, knowledge-based system, and pattern recognition. Thus, the artificial intelligence and the machine learning, which was considered until then as a training program for AI, took separate paths. From there, the machine learning has been restructured into a separate field and the ML aim evolved from training artificial intelligence to solving partial problems based on statistics and probability theory instead of approaches inherited from AI. During this time, the machine learning industry maintained its focus on neural networks. Even of this restructuration and the slow but continued progress during the AI winter, the fall of the overall AI was inevitable. One of the most relevant research work in this period and known as state-of-the-art was the Stanford Cart. In 1979, the Stanford University built a robot called the Cart. The project started in 1959 as a long-term project and it took 2 decades to become functional. It was originally thought as a lunar rover, a radio linked to a large mainframe computer which could navigate in a chair-filled room without human help. To cross the entire room, it took 5 hours and it could make a way of 20 meters. Lately, the project was officially named the Stanford Cart and was rethinked as an autonomous vehicle. Now that we know and have seen how and when machine learning and AI took separate paths, we will then continue the journey with the next topic, machine learning and AI history, the early 80s renewed excitement. Thank you for your attention, see you soon!